Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching 6th and final part of What If Naruto Found Death God's Weapon. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
It was the first time Yumi had ever seen Akuma's body. She was a little surprised because she didn't know, but he had a lot of muscle on his chest, abdomen and his one real arm. The rest was, of course, made up. She also saw that he had a lot of scars all over his body. They were also a result of how he tortured people. As she looked at his body, Kurama told her to remember something. Remember, Yumi, you can't stay in this form for long, so hurry up. You have to weaken him enough to wake up Kamada. Then let's hope he can get through the pain he went through, said Kurama, and Yumi nodded. Don't worry. If he's really Ni-san, Sama's, he'll be fine, said Yumi, but Kurama had his doubts. While Yumi looked at Akuma's body, he had to look at her, too. He didn't see much, but her skin turned black, which he could only see on her hands, feet, and face because her clothes covered the rest of her body. She now had fox ears, sharp claws and teeth, and blood-red eyes. But her smile was the most unsettling thing about her. Her toothy smile made him think of the moon, which is what drives people crazy. Akuma put his cross on his belt and took out his scythe. Let's dance, shouted Akuma, and Yumi didn't wait and appeared right before Akuma and tried to hit him. But now Akuma was prepared and waited for the hit and blocked it with the handle of the scythe. However, the hit was strong enough to push him back a few meters. But when he stopped, he pushed her back, and this time Akuma hit her and she flew back at least 20 meters. When she looked up, she was surprised because Akuma was just walking towards her as fast as he could. What does he do? Kurama asked Yumi with no idea what he was talking about. It looks like we've found his only weakness, said Kurama, but Yumi still didn't understand. Because of his injuries and prosthetic limbs, he can't run or jump very well. I bet he can only move higher if he uses the scythe. If you can take advantage of this weakness of his, we can beat him, said Kurama, and Yumi nodded. When she turned her attention back to Akuma, he was already there ready to hit her, but she dodged his attack before he could. Instead of talking to Kurama, you should pay more attention to me. Akuma then pulled out his cross and started shooting at her with it. Yumi realized the only way to beat him was with taijutsu. If she tried to fight him from above, he would shoot her down, but if they were close, he would only use his scythe. When he dodged the last cross bullet, Yumi ran at Akuma full speed to hit him. Akuma saw this, and when they were close, he tried to cut her down with. It is unbelievable. Other shinobi, even the Raikage, couldn't even touch him, but she is beating him, a Konoha Anbu agent who was watching the fight from a tree said this. Let's hope you're right and that she really does beat him. When he's completely weak, we'll finish him off, the captain of the Anbu said. But Yumi-sama said she wants to save him, and we can't help her, another Anbu agent said. Minato-sama told me right away to kill the demon when he is weak. When the mission is over, he will deal with Yumi-sama. While they were talking, Yumi went to the place where the Biju bomb exploded. She found a huge crater, but Akuma wasn't there. Just as she was about to go down, she heard rocks moving. Then they were thrown away, and Akuma stood up. He had some minor injuries, but nothing serious. The only problem was that his artificial hand was on the wrong side. It looks like I didn't take you seriously enough. I'm sorry about that, Akuma said this, but Yumi was too busy to listen, so she attacked him again. But Akuma caught her hand before her attack could reach its goal. Akuma looked at her, and now she could see into his gold eye. She saw the hate and determination in it. He pushed her back a little, then hit her in the stomach with all his strength. The hit was much too strong, and she flew into the wall of the crater. Also, the hit caused many internal wounds to bleed. Her mouth let some of the blood out. Yumi, are you alright? Kurama asked, who didn't think they could win this battle. I'll just heal these wounds, she said. She said that Yumi and Kurama fixed her right away. This hit was so hard I thought it was going to kill me, Yumi said something, but Kurama couldn't right now. You have to keep going, but you should try to be more careful, said Kurama, and Yumi nodded. Yumi actually came out of the wall and looked at Akuma in the real world. He was not upset at all. It didn't look good. If he was this calm, it meant that he was sure he would win. She hit him again, but he dodged all of her blows. She knew she had to hit him faster, so she did. This time, some of her hits hit Akuma, but after a while, Akuma got used to her speed. After a few seconds, their heights were the same. They both tried to hit the other, but all they could do was hit their own fists. Some of the hits were so hard that it sounded like something blew up. When the Anbu agents got there, they were speechless. Their eyes couldn't keep up with them. The hits were so strong that the crater around Akuma and Yumi started to grow. "Captain? Orders?" one of the agents asked, and you could tell by the way he talked that he was scared. He had just found out how powerful Akuma and Yumi were. "We will stay here until we see a chance to attack. Right now, if we tried to join the fight, we would be killed in the first minute." The captain said this, and the other two agreed. It's very scary. Their strength, speed, and quickness. It's not a fight between two shinobi or warriors. Two mountaineers are fighting. The others didn't answer, but they knew the captain was right. They kept watching the fight, but then someone came up behind them. When they saw who it was, they were surprised. In the crater, Yumi and Akuma still tried to hit each other as hard as they could, but they could only do minor damage. Yumi was able to heal herself quickly, but she had to use chakra to do so. Meanwhile, Akuma grabbed Yumi's hand and threw her into the crater wall. "Yumi, you have to finish this fight. I can't do it for much longer." Kurama and Yumi both agreed with him, he said. Who would have thought that Akuma was so strong? Most shinobi didn't understand how powerful he was. Even worse was the fact that he is still a child. In 10 years, he'd be impossible to stop. It's time to wrap this up. Back in the real world, Yumi started to focus again. She called up a sword and took a starting position, while Akuma did the same with his scythe. "Let's get this namikaze over with," Akuma yelled, and then they both ran towards each other. Then there was only one sound. It was when the two blades touched. Both of them tried to knock the other one down, and they used their speed and strength to do so. However, they were both so tired that they were about to fall over. Then Akuma tried to cut her in half, but Yumi saw a tiny opening for a second and used all of her power to block the scythe. With a full turn, she pushed the scythe away, and then she used all of her power to stab Akuma in the stomach. "This is our opportunity. Send my spiritual energy into him," Kurama yelled, and Yumi sent her and Kurama's chakra into the blade, through the blade, and into Akuma's body. It seemed like time stopped, and then everyone was inside Akuma's mind. Kurama and Yumi looked around, and it was just like Ino said. In front of the gate, which was the only way to Kamada, stood a very tired and hurt Akuma. "I won't let you wake him up, because if you do, you'll ruin all the hard work we put in," Akuma said something, but Yumi didn't pay attention to what he said. "It's over, Akuma. Even though this is your territory, you're too tired to stop us now. Get out of the way and let us help him," Yumi said this in a dull voice. "Please, I beg you, don't do this. You'll only make things worse," he said this while on his knees. "I don't believe it. Kurama, open it." Akuma tried to stop them, but he was too tired. The chakra grabbed the gate and tore it apart. Then the orb where Kamada was sleeping appeared. Akuma jumped at the orb to protect it with his body, but this was also useless. The chakra grabbed him and threw him away. Then the chakra opened it. It only took a few seconds and Kamada was awake. "What is this? What happened to me? Where are my mom and dad?" asked Kamada, who was very confused. His overbreathing was getting worse and worse. Yumi knew she had to do something to get him to stop being so angry. "It's fine, Kamada," he said. "Calm down. You have to take calm breaths or you'll pass out, said Yumi, and Kamada looked at her. Who are you? Kamada asked, but when he saw the Konoha headband on her forehead, his eyes grew wide and he felt a great deal of fear. When Yumi saw this, she tried to make him feel better. Don't worry, I won't hurt you, he said. I'm Yumi, and your dad is my brother. I am your aunt. I came to you to help, Yumi said this, but Kamada didn't believe her. Then, all of a sudden, his headache got worse. Ah! My head hurts so much! Screamed Kamada. He pushed Yumi away when she tried to help him. Kamada remembered everything that had happened to him in the last 8 years all at once. Now I remember. Mom, Dad? They're gone? It's impossible. What? I don't. Kamada screamed after he grabbed his head with his hand. It was too much for him. He remembered when his parents were killed, when they tortured him, and when Akuma was in charge and killed all those shinobi. Yumi had to do something. She didn't know what, so she grabbed him and hugged him tightly. Please don't worry. I'm here, and everything will be fine now, said Yumi. They killed them, and they did all of those things to me. That's way too much. I can't take any more of this, Kamada screamed, and all the pain and suffering hit him like a truck. Even an adult couldn't handle this much pain. I can help you. I know people who can heal you, but first you need to calm down. Yumi tried to help, but it didn't work, so she kept going. I can't even begin to imagine what you went through, but you have to accept what happened. What would your parents, Onoki, and Akuma think about you right now if they saw you? Kamada started to calm down a little when Yumi asked him, but he was still crying. They would be let down, Kamada said it in a very quiet voice, but Yumi could hear it. Yumi let him go, and then she looked him in the eye. What they did to you was mean and can never be forgiven. Jiraiya and my father will get what they deserve, and my mother and I will help you, said Yumi. Oh, really? Asked Kamada, and Yumi smiled. I stand by my word, Yumi said, hold up your hand, and she did. Kamada was about to do the same when a blade stabbed him in the back. He stopped right away, and Yumi's eyes widened. Before Kamada could say anything else, several blades came out of the shadows and stabbed him all over. But Yasuhida, he started to say Kamada, but he couldn't finish. I didn't do it, Yumi said, it's too late, because Kamada had already passed out by the time she said it. Of course, it was me, the voice came from nowhere. When Yumi looked behind Kamada, she saw the one person she hated even more than her father and Jiraiya. Uchiha Sasuke? You are alive? Yumi asked, and Sasuke replied with a proud smile. Of course I am. Did you really think this crazy person could kill a Uchiha like me? Sasuke said it, and Yumi didn't say it, but she secretly hoped that Akuma would kill him as well. Let him go. He has already been through enough pain, Yumi yelled, but Sasuke had other ideas. His father cut off my arm. We killed him, but that wasn't enough. I want his precious little child to suffer a little more, Sasuke said this, and the lightning blade on his arm began to send more electricity into Kamada's body. As soon as Kamada woke up, the pain made him start to scream. As Sasuke sent more and more electricity, it started to burn his organs. Even his skin began to burn from the inside. This was the only thing that didn't work. Fire couldn't hurt him from the outside, but it could hurt him from the inside. Yumi couldn't stand to see him hurt, so she tried to help him but couldn't move. She was horrified to look back and see 3 Ambu agents, one of whom was Inara. Shikamaru. If I touch you, I will tear you to pieces, Yumi heard him shout, but because of the mask, she couldn't see what he looked like. I'm sorry, Yumi, but he has to die for the good of Konoha and to save the shinobi system. I hope you'll understand someday. Shikamaru spoke in a dull voice. Fuck you and your way of thinking, Yumi yelled. Kurama, please help me. I can't move, and I'm too weak to get rid of his jutsu. Yumi spoke to Kurama in her mind. I'll do my best, Kurama said this and started to focus. In the real world, Kurama's chakra appeared and went to save Kamada. By now, Kamada had at least 3 degrees of burns all over his body. Kurama's chakra grabbed him and pulled him down from the lightning blade. Kurama pulled him close to Yumi and they wanted to heal him right away, but they didn't even know if he was alive or not. Minato was happy that Sasuke came back and was able to weaken and hopefully kill Kamada. He made Sasuke the head of the Anbu and told him to find at least 5 wives within a month and start rebuilding the clan. On the other hand, he was disappointed in Yumi because she tried to save Kamada and almost destroyed the shinobi world. After more than 3 years of living this way, a strange man showed up at the gate of Konoha. Who are you? Identify yourself, said one of the shinobi who was at the gate. I'm Kuro, and I have bad news, the strange man said. About what are you talking? Same shinobi was asked. We angered God and now his chosen will come to kill us all. We angered God and now his chosen will come to kill us all, shouted the strange man. The shinobis thought he was drunk or high, but after that he started to preach about an angel who became a demon and he would kill every shinobi with his scythe. The shinobis and some of the civilian people who were there started to whisper with each other when they heard this. So the shinobis took him away immediately before he started to make a bigger scene. Firstly, they took him to Ibiki and asked him to make him talk. However, it wasn't a good idea. Kuro is already totally insane, whatever he tried it didn't work. Then they tried to torture him a little, but his body has already been through enough because of Orochimaru and his experiments. After this they called a few experts from the Yamanaka clan and tried to invade his mind. Unfortunately, Akuma made sure that no shinobi could ever get any information out of him if he was captured. By the time they realized this, 2 days passed. Every time they tried something he only said this, I only talk to the emperor. Of course the shinobi, who wanted to get out some information from him, only hit him and said the emperor was too busy to talk to trash like him. But after 2 days everybody gave up and they immediately sent a word to Minato. The answer came back pretty quickly and asked them to send this man to the Hokage Tower. By now the Hokage Tower was more like a fort, palace. Because of the new laws and Minato's megalomania they rebuilt the whole tower, moreover they made the village bigger. Right now there were 3 walls. Those who lived between the exterior and middle wall were the poorest of the people, mostly peasants and farmers. Between the middle and the interior wall lived the middle class, doctors, architects, merchants and so on. And after the interior wall there was the former Hokage Tower, now Emperor Palace, moreover the richest people, the political elite and every shinobi lived here. In Minato's eyes those who were shinobis deserved to live better than those who had chakra, but weren't shinobis. That's why a lot of people tried to become one, but now nobody could just enter the academy and become a shinobi. The academy became much harder and by the time you wanted to enter you had to be at least at genin level, you had to know at least 2 jutsus and so on. That's why Minato created that law that every shinobi had to have at least 3 children, because these children had more chance to get in than others. Of course, even with these rules there were far more students than before. The reason is obvious: better living conditions, better salary and so on. However, there was another law which was non-negotiable: those who wanted to become a shinobi. Because Minato needed a lot of shinobi to maintain the peace and harmony in the empire, he created another law for those who became genins. After you became an official genin, you had to get married and started to get a family as soon as you could. Of course a genin's salary wasn't that high, so if somebody had a children that time the empire helped them out with money and other services. With these laws Konoha's shinobi number increased with 40% in these 3 years. By now you would ask what would the daimyo say in this matter? Well, not too much, because he is dead. Minato realized that the daimyos were always in the way when it was about a war, because they cared about the politics more than helping the village to become stronger. That's why Minato executed the daimyo and his family and did the same thing in every country. He wanted to execute the previous cages too, but realized that could only lead to rebellion, so the previous cages were only held in a prison in Konoha. Of course he made sure only a shinobi could let them out, and that shinobi was himself. Minato made sure nobody could endanger his power, that is why he kept the former cages in prison, but he put seals on everybody to spy on them if it was necessary. He even created the secret police and used them to spy on questionable people and take them away to camps or prison if it was necessary, just because he is so afraid to lose his power. He completely believed that he was the child of prophecy, which Jiraiya talked about years ago. He brought the peace, freedom, justice, and security to his new empire. However, there wasn't real peace because in almost every country there were rebellious cells who tried to get the original leadership back. They tried everything like damaged Minato's or other Konoha statues, painted graffitis all over the villages and towns which criticized Konoha and Minato, stole weapons from the military storehouses, or destroyed these storehouses. Let's just say they were creative. There wasn't freedom or justice or even a tiny bit of security, because the shinobis always attacked people in the occupied countries without reason. Sometimes they took away young girls who were never seen after, or if they found them they were naked and dead. Moreover, you could see they were raped. But when they tried to call the police for these kind of events, they said there were no evidence the shinobis did anything wrong. Sometimes the shinobis just broke inside a house and ordered the people who lived there to give them everything which was valuable. The life was terrible for those who lived in the occupied territories. Some people blamed Akuma for this because it was him who took away the shinobi's chakra and that's why they couldn't protect themselves, while others blamed their cage because they couldn't stop Akuma, and others blamed somebody else. Right now, Kuro was taken to Minato. Minato spent most of his time in his office because running an empire wasn't easy. But he liked to relax in his throne room, which was full of paintings and statues about his great achievements, like when he defeated the Kyuubi or when he founded the empire. Anbu, who is this man, and why does he make my throne room dirty by being here? Minato asked, angry that they had tried to wake him up while he was resting. I'm sorry, Emperor Sama, but this man knows something about the demon, Akuma, the Anbu agent said, and Minato's eyes grew wide because he was sure that Akuma was dead by now because of Sasuke's injuries. Minato asked, then why don't you bring him to Ibiki and let him play with him? In the last 2 days, we tried everything, but nothing worked. All he said was that he wants to talk to you, Emperor Sama, the Anbu said, and Minato could only sigh. Okay, who are you and what do you want from me? Minato asked with annoyance in his voice. My name is Kuro, and I used to be a medic shinobi and a puppet master. But when Orochimaru kidnapped me and tried to steal my information, everything changed. When he realized that my knowledge wasn't useful for his studies, he started to test on me, Kuro said, which explains why he looks so strange and deformed. Kuro said, I was locked up for years, but then an angel came and saved us all. He didn't just save us from Orochimaru. He also broke the chains that bound us. Minato didn't understand what Kuro meant. What kind of chains do you mean? Minato asked. Kuro said, of course, it was the chakra. It bound everyone, but now I am free from its curse. This made Minato very angry, because he thought the chakra was a gift, not a curse. It brings people together and shows how they feel. It helped them get to know each other better. At least, Minato thought this was the case. But Kuro went on before Minato could say anything. After he saved us, I offered to help him finish his great mission, Kuro began, but Minato cut him off before he could finish. Do you think it's great to kill thousands of people and steal their chakra? Minato yelled in anger. As I said before, the chakra is a curse, and he freed us from it, she said. He didn't want my help at first, but after I showed him what I knew, he agreed to take it. I made him special arms and legs, and I also tried to find a way to ease his pain. Everything was going well, but then everything changed, Kuro said, and he started to tell them what had happened 3 years ago. Think back 3 years. Kuro was in his lab and tried another ingredient for Akuma's medicine. When he injected it into a mouse, the mouse died soon after. It was another failure, and it was very frustrating. He tried almost every kind of herb or other ingredient to make the medicine perfect, but the results weren't good. Some of them killed the mouse, while others didn't do anything. Kuro started to think there was no way to make his painkiller perfect. Angel, what happened to you? Kuro asked, and Angel was taken to the operating room right away. He saw that Kamada was losing too much blood and that his body wasn't getting better. He had been burned, so he didn't know what he looked like on the inside. So he started the operation right away to save him. But the result wasn't what he had hoped for. After he stopped bleeding, he saw that most of his organs had been burned away, so he had several parts taken from other people. He had his kidneys, a bigger piece of his liver, and one of his lungs put into someone else. He mostly fixed his digestive system, but now he won't be able to eat solid food. Also, his heart got very weak, so he put a few pacemakers in it to help it work. He tried to do something with his skin and fixed his broken arms. But he couldn't do much, so he tried a skin transplant, but the effect was horrifying. By the time he was done, a week had gone by, but he was still living. But it wasn't much of a life because he wasn't very good at what he did. After this, he had to have more surgeries and build little tools to help his breathing, blood flow, and bowel movements. Kamada was still living after a whole month because of the machines that Kuro built. But the work wasn't finished. Kuro had to give him a lot of medicine to keep him living, and he also had to take care of the machines inside of him. He also made a unique gas mask. Kamada couldn't take in enough air because his lungs and breathing muscles were too weak. This mask made sure that his lungs got enough air. Hanzo the salamander wore something similar, but instead of air screens, it had suction motors. Also, he needed a lot of medicines, so he changed his prosthetic arms and built in special ways to give them to him. Kamada got the drugs and other important medicines with these. Kamada was in a coma for years after all the surgeries, but he woke up last week. Kuro tried to make him feel better, but it didn't help. It wasn't either Kamada or Akuma who woke up. It was something else, something terrible that wanted to get back at every person who used chakra. Flashback end. Angel ran off into the bush when I couldn't stop him. After looking for him for a few hours, I realized he was no longer Angel. He was either an angel or an evil spirit. I used to believe in him, but now I don't. Kuro said, and Minato understood everything except one thing. Why do you say that he lost his original goal? Minato asked. Angel didn't want to kill every chakra user at first. He only wanted to take their chakra away to show them that they could live better without it. Now, though, all he wants to do is kill and destroy, Kuro said, and Minato nodded. Minato said, thank you for telling me this. Normally, you'd be rewarded for telling us this, but since you helped Akuma, you'll be sent to prison and probably killed after we deal with that freak, but Kuro just laughed. I told you this not to help you. Kuro said, I did this because I got a message from above to warn you to get ready for the death. Suddenly, a blade came out of his lab coat. No one knew how he got it there, but it didn't matter. The Anbu jumped in front of Minato to protect him, but to their surprise, Kuro didn't even try to attack him. Instead, he put the blade to his neck. Kuro said, with this, my mission is done. I hope the judge of the dead will have mercy on me. Minato told his man to stop him, but it was too late. By the time they got to him, he had cut his own throat and was dead. Minato was furious because he still knew some things that could help. He gave the Anbu the order to look through his body. They took him away right away, but 2 hours later, an Anbu came back with a book. He told Minato that, like Akuma's arm, his was made of metal, which is why he could have a blade. Minato didn't find it strange because Kuro was a puppet master. Minato was told by the agent that the book was found in the same arm. Minato picked up the book and read it. However, he didn't understand a word. Bring Tsunade and my daughter here right away, Minato told the Anbu, which stopped moving. What's wrong? Minato asked with a little rage. Emperor Sama, the last time we sent someone to Yumi-sama, there wasn't even a body to bring back. Please don't call her here, the Anbu said, and Minato groaned. Ever since Yumi got out of jail he couldn't control her. She became a hermit who lived in the forest, and every time he sent a shinobi to get her only corpses returned. The last time there wasn't even a corpse, just a message, "We need a mop here." Minato said, "Tell her Kamada is still alive, and maybe she'll come back." The Anbu nodded, but Minato was still scared. It wasn't long before Tsunade showed up. With her jutsu, she still looked young, but she was starting to feel old. She was still one of the strongest shinobi living, but she needed a stick to help her walk. She threw the Anbu agent who was looking for her in front of Minato when she got into the throne room. He was lucky to still be alive. Minato could tell she was already drunk just by looking at her. "Minato, what do you want?" Tsunade was angry and said, "I quit and don't want to deal with you, Jiraiya, or your stupid prophecy ever again." She quit after the empire was made because she saw what the power did to him and Jiraiya. She had enough of everything, especially the shinobi life. Minato told Tsunade to calm down and to call him either Minato-sama or Emperor-sama, but Tsunade didn't care. "You can call me whatever you want, brat. You might call yourself an emperor, but most people see you as nothing but a tyrant," Tsunade said with hatred. Minato said with a smile, "What are you talking about? In every village I went to, the people only cheered for me, threw flowers on the road, and waved the empire's flag." "Well, it's easy when they're told that if they don't do it, they'll be killed right away," Tsunade said, but before Minato could answer, Tsunade went on. Tsunade asked Minato, "Now what do you want?" Minato threw the book to Tsunade, who caught it. "What is it?" asked Tsunade. "We found this book in Akuma's prosthetic limb, but no one could figure out what it said. I want you to read it and find a weak point. If you do this, we can finally get rid of that freak, and we'll have peace forever. Also, I'll leave you alone." Minato said, but Tsunade knew he was lying about leaving her alone. "Why on earth would I do that? You have a lot of medical shinobi and scientists, give them something to do," yelled Tsunade. "But I want the best, and I think it would be terrible if something happened to Shizune or if she was given to Sasuke. Don't you agree?" Minato said, and Tsunade was very close to tearing him apart. "How dare you threaten me with Shizune, you scum! If you dare." Tsunade began, but Minato cut her off. "Be quiet, you old bone collection," Minato yelled. "You do what I say because I am the emperor here and everyone serves me, including you. Find that weak spot, or I'll throw Shizune to Sasuke and you'll never see her again. Do you understand?" Minato said, "You won this turn," and Tsunade opened the book and started to read. Tsunade said, "Give me a week. I've never seen anything like this before. 3 days, no more." "Now go," said Minato, and Tsunade left the room. While they were talking, another Anbu agent was about to reach Yumi's house. It was a very simple house in the forest. She didn't have electricity or running water here. She used candles at night and bathed in the lake nearby. "What do you want here?" a furious Yumi asked. The agent was about to throw up, but he couldn't move because he could feel her power. Yumi said, "Well, if you don't tell me why you're here, I'll just kill you." She was about to kill him when he turned around and bowed to her. The spy said, "Please don't kill me. I just brought a message from Emperor Sama." "What's the matter this time?" "They want me to kill some rebels or become Sasuke's wife again," Yumi asked in a disgusted tone. Yumi's eyes got big when the spy said, "Emperor Sama told me to tell you that Kamada is still alive. If you dare lie to me, I'll..." She started to say, "Yumi," but the agent cut her off. No, I swear. They told me he was alive, and I had to tell you." "Please don't kill me, I have a family," the agent said, and Yumi suddenly turned away. "If you lied to me, I'll find you and tear you apart. Then I'll do the same thing to your family. Do you understand?" Yumi asked, and the agent nodded at her at least 100 times. "No, Get the hell out of here before I change my mind, and tell that jerk I'll meet him at the top of the Hokage mountain in 2 hours, Yumi said, and the agent ran away right away. Yumi began to think after he left. Is he really still alive? With all of those wounds, it's impossible. Even if Kurama's chakra didn't work, I'd be in a lot of trouble. Yumi thought about it, and then she turned to her only friend. What do you think, Kurama? Asked Yumi. I don't know, but you sent him somewhere. Maybe you sent him to someone who could save him, but who knows? The real question is who is in charge now, Akuma, Kamada, or something else? Said Kurama, as Yumi took out Akuma's cross. Do you think that Kamada was taken over by the evil power in the scythe? Asked Yumi and looked up at Kurama. It's hard to say. Both Naruto and Akuma had strong wills, but you gave control back to Kamada, so a lot of things could have happened, Kurama said with a sad face. He felt bad for Kamada because nothing bad that happened to him was his fault. Do you think there's still a chance to save even a little bit of him? Yumi asked, looking like she had given up completely. I don't know. I hope it's just a joke and Kamada is dead. He's been through more than anyone else in this world, Kurama said, and Yumi nodded. She had a lot of time to think in her cell after the whole thing. She saw that she was to blame for a lot of things. If she had been a better sister, none of this would have happened, like Naruto finding the scythe and turning into that monster or Jiraiya changing the prophecy and going completely crazy because of it. Yumi said, I should have been a good sister to Naruto. Then he would still be alive and none of this would have happened. Then she fell down and started to cry. Kurama looked at her with sad eyes and felt her pain. He wanted to help Naruto when those Anbu agents attacked him and his family, but he had no chakra at the time, so he was completely helpless. Crying won't help. First, we need to make sure he's still alive, and then we'll figure out what to do next. When Yumi heard this, she got up and wiped away her tears. Now, she looked at Kurama with eyes that were full of purpose, and when Kurama saw this, he smiled. Right, Yumi said, and then she went back to the village to meet her father. Minato was standing at the edge of the mountain and waited for her daughter. He was happy because the Anbu agent survived and even he managed to convince her to meet him. If everything goes right he will convince her to destroy Akuma, but if not there is still some seal prepared for her to make her a little more obedient. This was one of the reasons Yumi didn't return to the village after she was released from the prison. She knew they wanted to put a seal on her. They couldn't do it in the prison because it would have distracted the other seals which were in her prison cell. They tried to put a seal on her when she became a hermit in the forest, but she put up some kind of barrier and that's why they always failed. She knew every time if somebody came into this barrier, but they didn't know how big the barrier was. So in a way that forest was her safe place. That is why Minato didn't understand why Yumi wanted to meet him here. But his thoughts were interrupted when somebody appeared before him. It was Yumi who was now a beautiful woman. She was much like her mother and now wore some simple civilian clothes. They were a brown trousers with a green shirt. I'm here. What do you want? Yumi asked as soon as she showed up. This is how you say hello to your dad after 2 years? Minato asked, but Yumi just looked at him with hate in her eyes. Yumi asked in the same tone, I don't see you as my father anymore, so what do you want? All Minato did was sigh. An Anbu agent told you that Akuma is still alive in some way. Minato said, I want you to kill him, but as soon as he finished speaking. No, Yumi said, and Minato got angry. What? Minato yelled. That weirdo is the enemy of the shinobi. He needs to die once and for all. Why don't you get it? Minato asked angrily. You're to blame for everything because all you did was believe in a stupid prophecy. You sent out a small army to kill your own son, his wife, and your grandson, who was living with them. Then that boy became everything you tried to avoid. This so-called forecast came true because of you. Yumi said, "This is your poop. It's time for you to clean it up," and she was about to leave when Minato put up a barrier around them. Minato said, "You won't leave until I tell you to," and Yumi sighed at his stupidity. He had no idea he was talking to a shadow copy. But what could you expect from someone who hasn't trained much in the last few years because he was too busy to enjoy his power? He was no longer a cage anymore. He was still a strong shinobi, but not as strong as he used to be. "You're getting weaker, Minato. You didn't even know you were talking to a shadow clone. But what would you expect from a person who doesn't train and uses his power to hurt other people?" Yumi told Minato, "You're so sad, Minato." This made Minato very angry. "You have the nerve to call me weak. You ungrateful brat. I will use all of my seals on you and make you a good little slave. Then I will give you to Sasuke so he can use you as a..." Minato was about to say more, but an Anbu agent cut him off. "Emperor Sama." The agent yelled, and Minato turned to look at him. Minato asked, "What's going on?" "I'm in the middle of something important." He was angry and impatient. "I know, my lord, but you need to hurry to the gate." The agent said, something happened, but Minato didn't really care. "I'll take care of that later. This is more important right now," Minato told Yumi as he turned back to her. "You don't get it, my lord." A group of ships came from Suna and began the spy, but Minato cut him off. Minato was angry and said, "So what? This is more important than a stupid convoy. Go deal with it and don't." The agent cut him off this time. "The ship is full of SHINOBIS heads." The agent yelled, and Minato went quiet. "What?" Minato asked, but Yumi began talking before the agent could answer. "It looks like he's back for good. You should get ready, Minato, because I don't think there will be any mercy this time," Yumi said before releasing the jutsu and disappearing. The real Yumi got the message right away and knew she had to get ready too. In the meantime, Minato ran to the gate to see what was going on. When he got there, he saw that his shinobis had already captured and tied up the members of the convoy. "What the hell happened? Why did you kill them? They were your guardians and your saviors. Why?" Minato asked when one of them looked up. He was dressed like an average person, with black pants, a black shirt, and a green vest. He had short brown hair and a few scratches on his face. He used to work as a shinobi. As soon as he looked at Minato, he spat in his face. When the shinobi saw this, they gave him a kick to the stomach right away. After washing his face, Minato was about to kill the man, but the man just laughed. "Guardians or saviors? Are you joking? Those were the ones who hurt us. We lost everything because they took it. They took our money, our homes, our families, and even our pride," the guy said as he looked at a head with short reddish-brown hair and a beard. "The guy with the reddish-brown hair took my daughter. He said she was a suspect in some kind of crime," the angry man said. "If he said it, it must be true." Minato said, "Those shinobi were all good people who worked hard, and they were all shinobi." The man just looked at him with hate in his eyes. "My daughter was 11 years old. She had to work as a waitress to help support our family. She never did anything wrong. But that motherfucker took her, deflowered her, raped her, and when he got tired of her, he killed her. Her body was found in an alley. She was naked and bloody. When my wife saw her, she fell down and cried for 3 days. She wanted to kill herself because she couldn't take the pain. And my daughter wasn't, but it didn't kill him." He got up and laughed at him after getting hit. "What you hear doesn't sound good to you. Then I'll explain what happened." The man said, "Let's see if you like that," and then he told them what happened in Suna. Flashback. Suna has been only the shadow of its former self since Konoha occupied it. The daimyo was killed and Gaara was taken away to Konoha. The population lived their life in fear because they never knew when they would be taken away too. Moreover, Konoha demanded everything from them, starting with the jutsus and knowledge, then everything else. Most of the men, who lived there, had to work in the mines to collect any kind of ores. The salary was low and work hours were long. However, they couldn't do anything because there weren't too many shinobis there, but they were strong. They had no chance against them. But then one day something strange appeared on the horizon. The shinobis, who were at the gate, couldn't tell what it was, but they were sure it was coming there. They immediately called reinforcement, but that time they couldn't know it was useless. A few minutes later they saw what it was. It was a monster, to be more precise it was an Asterian beast, and somebody was at his head. They recognized it in that moment and they closed the gates, which were built not long ago. 10 shinobis stayed outside to protect the gate. When the beast was near they attacked him with fire-type jutsus. However, the beast was immune to fire and broke through the fire, and when it was near to the shinobis it started to throw fire from its mouth. Shinobis tried to protect themselves with water-type jutsus, but it wasn't strong enough to stop the beast's fire. The shinobis burned to death. Their comrades, who were at the other side of the gate, heard their screams as they burned. After they died, the beast grabbed the gate and started to open it. It didn't take much time and the gate started to move. When it was wide open, the shinobis tried the same tactic like their comrades, but it didn't work. The stranger jumped down and with his scythe he started to cut down everybody who attacked him. He didn't try to be fast. He just walked with a normal speed and cut down anyone who got in his way. When he killed everyone at the gate, the beast disappeared and the rest of the shinobis arrived. There were at least 300 shinobis who looked at the stranger with hate. He wore a brown cape and hood so they couldn't see his face. Then somebody walked up to him. It was Hyuga Neji, who was the temporary leader of the village, because Hyuga Hiyashi, the permanent leader, was away because of some clan business. Neji told everyone to back off because he was going to deal with this commoner. "Are you sure, sir?" One of the shinobi in the crowd said, "Look what he did to our friends." Neji said, "They were weak, but I won't lose. Fate is on my side, and it has already picked me as the winner." He then turned on his Byakugan. He saw the stranger's body when he looked at him. He was both shocked and disgusted by him because he seemed more like a machine than a person. "Oh, I see. So you thought those parts of a doll could protect you from me? You are mistaken." Neji said to the stranger, "Actually, you should give up now, because fate made me the winner." The stranger didn't say anything, so Neji got angry. Neji said, "All right, I tried to help you, but it looks like you don't care." He then ran towards him. As soon as he got close, he started hitting him all over to try to close his chakra points. The last time he hit, the stranger flew back a few yards and then fell on his back. The shinobis began to cheer, and Neji smiled because fate had once again worked out for the best. Or not. Because the stranger began to stand up. He had to use the scythe to do it, but he was able to get up. Neji was very angry when he looked at him, but when he did, he realized something. The stranger didn't get hurt. His attack didn't work. "How dare you laugh at destiny?" Neji yelled, "I will kill you." And he attacked again. But before he could reach him, the stranger caught Neji's arm. He tried to free himself, but it was no use. Then the stranger with a strong move broke his arm. Neji screamed and fell to his knees. The stranger then grabbed him by the neck and held him up. Neji said, "You can't do this to me. You're just a commoner, and I'm from the noble Hyuga clan. Fate chose me as the winner, not you." The stranger was tired of hearing Neji talk about fate, so he took his scythe and smashed the stranger's head with the end of the handle. The other shinobi couldn't say anything, but then they figured out something. They had to fight or run away. Charge. A shinobi yelled. Run. Yelled a second shinobi. Then, many shinobi struck the stranger while others ran away. But it didn't matter because the stranger beat everyone. The people of Suna saw this as a chance, so they got ready to help the stranger with everything they could find. By the end of the day, all of the shinobi in Suna had been killed. When the battle was over, the people of Suna wanted to thank the stranger, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he called up another Asterian beast and jumped on it. But at least the civilians wanted to know his name, and he told them this instead. Stop going back in time. How did he answer? Minato, who was about to blow up because 300 of his shinobi had died in Suna because of that freak, yelled, "Tell us." He said, "Shinobi must die," and then he left the village. We brought their bodies and heads here to show you what he had done. If you want to know, whatever was left of their bodies was burned, said a Suna civilian. Minato was mad, but he just sent them to jail for now. But he knew for sure that he would kill them because they had betrayed the empire. But things got worse as new convoys came from everywhere over the next few days. They came from the towns that used to be hidden. And every time, the same thing happened, his shinobis filled them with heads. Minato was very angry. But maybe it is an underestimate. He killed the guys who came with the convoys because he was angry. But it only made things worse because many people saw them as heroes. A big revolt broke out, and the villages that had been hidden started to get their land back. Because the leaders were Minato's men and the stranger killed them, it wasn't hard to make a new group of leaders. Also, the guys without chakras who liked Konoha were found and killed. They became spies to make a little more money, but that made them betray their own people. Minato wanted to send out his shinobi to stop the uprising, but right now he needed everyone in Konoha to protect it. After 3 days, he went to Tsunade to see how she was doing. When he walked into the lab, he saw that she was sleeping while holding a bottle of sake. There were lots of notes and drawings on the boards. There was a big picture of Akuma in the middle. It was about his body, think of it like Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. On one half, it showed how he looked from the outside, and on the other, how he looked from the inside. Minato walked over to Tsunade and kicked the chair out from under her. When Tsunade fell to the ground, she woke up right away. "What do you want?" "I was asleep," Tsunade said as she got out of bed. Minato asked in a hurry, "Did you find anything to help you beat that monster?" "I read this book, and whoever this Kuro guy was, he was either a genius or the craziest person on the planet. His ways of replacing limbs are amazing, but he was a puppeteer, so that shouldn't be a surprise. But organ transfer is a different story. He came up with a way to move an organ from one person to another. But he does things in a rough way. But in time, he would have been one of the biggest," said Tsunade, but Minato hit the table when she kept talking about a rogue. "I don't care what you think about the traitor. I want to know how we can stop Akuma right now," said Minato. Then Tsunade showed the picture of Kamada. As you can see, Kuro transplanted new organs into Kamada, but the injuries were too bad, so he built tools to help move the blood in the whole body. Also, his lungs aren't good enough anymore, so he needs a special gas mask to breathe. Here's where you're weak. Like I said, Kuro's ways were not very good, and these machines need to be fixed. Without it, the person will die, Tsunade said, and Minato was happy for the first time since this whole thing started. Can anyone do these things to him? Minato asked. Only people who understand how his body works. I don't think I could do it, Tsunade said. This made Minato happy because he knew she wouldn't betray him. Minato asked, when should the next maintenance be? Tsunade read over the notes. It's hard to tell. 10 to 15 days. I'm not sure, Tsunade said, but Minato didn't lose his happy mood. 5 days ago, they captured Kuro, and Akuma had been on the run for 10 days. They just had to wait a few more days, and Akuma would die, and everything would be the same again. Back in the lab, after Minato left, Tsunade sat down, opened another bottle of sake, and started drinking from it. Suddenly, a familiar person walked in, and when Tsunade saw her, she held the sake for her and she drank from it too. Tsunade asked Yumi, "What are you doing here? You should be in your house, away from everyone, feeling bad about what you did to Naruto." Yumi just laughed at her. "That's funny coming from you, since you always did the same thing," Yumi told Tsunade. Tsunade just laughed at her. Tsunade said, "Maybe you're right," and Yumi walked over to the picture of Akuma. She saw a picture of her family under some notes. Before Akuma came along, this was the only picture of Kamada. In the middle of the shot was 6-year-old Kamada, who was being hugged by Naruto and Kuretsuchi. Everyone smiled. Yumi could only look at it with sadness because Naruto and Kuretsuchi were dead and Kamada is. Tsunade said, "He can't be saved," and Yumi turned to her in anger. "How do you know this? Maybe he still has a little bit of himself in him." Yumi started, but Tsunade cut her off. "There's nothing there anymore. Look at the picture in your hand, then look at the picture on the board," Tsunade told Yumi, who did it with great fear. It was so bad that Yumi couldn't hold it in any longer and ran to the nearest trash can to throw up. Tsunade wasn't surprised because the same thing had happened to her. The boy you want to save is dead. Even if the soul is still inside, it is only a prisoner of the body. In my eyes, he is nothing more than a body that a few machines move. The torture, pain, suffering, and so on, killed an innocent boy. I just hope that when he comes here, he kills me in a painless way." Tsunade said, then she kept drinking. Yumi got to her feet and looked at Tsunade. "I'm not going to believe it. I am sure I can save him. I hurt my brother in terrible ways, and I know he will never forgive me." Yumi said, "I can only do one good thing for him, and that is to save his son." "Foolish girl," said Tsunade. Not far from Konoha, the stranger was on the head of the Asterian beast and getting ready for the last fight. Shinobia. Musta Dia. Minato knew that they didn't have much time left in Konoha before Akuma came. But he knew that Akuma was running out of time and that they would only have to go through this for a few more days.
But he really wanted to win, so he gave a long speech to all of his shinobis.
8,000 shinobi stood in front of Minato's castle to listen to him. There were genins, chunins, junins, spies from the Anbu, and even students from the academy. Minato got up on a balcony and began to talk. "My friends, my fellow soldiers, shinobis." Minato said this in a very loud voice, hoping that everyone could hear her. "As you know, that freak Akuma is still alive and he is coming to kill us all. In his mind, we are the disease and he is the cure. But he is wrong. We are the disease and he is the cure. Where would the world be without us, shinobi? It was us who always solved the problems of nobles, daimyos, and so on. And thanks to your hard work, we were able to build this glorious empire. So I ask. There's one more thing," she said. Minato said, "The shinobi who brings me Akuma's head will be my heir," and everyone cheered even louder. "There is only one rule. You can't hurt other people to get his head," said Minato, and everyone said, "Hi Emperor Sama." Some of the shinobi had already thought about what they would do if they were the emperor. "Great. If I become emperor, I'll use every woman to have at least 3 or 5 Uchiha children. When there are enough Uchiha men, we'll kill all the other men in the empire, and when there are enough Uchiha women, we'll kill all the other women. And people who don't have chakra can work for us. They'll be working in the farms and mines. And they will be used as targets. It will be really cool. I'll make the Uchiha Empire, a place where only Uchihas can live easily," Uchiha Sasuke thought. If I take over for Minato-sensei, I can force everyone to read Jiraiya-sama's books. No, I'm not stupid. After I became emperor, I would burn every other book, leaving only the Icha works. Yes, that's a good idea. We'll also make big golden images of Jiraiya-sama and put them in every village, not every house. Yes, that will be good, Kakashi Hatake thought. Men will be the most powerful race if I become the next emperor. We can make out with any woman, anywhere, at any time. That's going to be great. Inuzuka Kiba thought, I'll start with that B*TCH Hinata. She'll learn that I'm the alpha, not that freak Naruto. If I became emperor, everyone would see how young I am. We could make everyone in the world feel young. Everyone would wear green spandex that looked young, and everyone would talk in young words. All done. Watch me, Guy-sensei. I'll be the next emperor, and I'll teach everyone what you taught me when I was young. And if I fail, I'll run around the empire 10,000 times, Rock Lee thought. Women, this could be very helpful to us. If I were the empress, I could force the men to work for us. They would wear seal, so we didn't have to worry that they would try to rape us. Yuhi Kurenai and Mitarashi Anko thought, we could be the most powerful race. What a drag. If I became emperor, I'd have to do a lot of papers. But I would be in charge of thousands of men and women. Nara Shikamaru thought, they could do all the work while I take a nap and watch the clouds. And these are just a few of the other things the shinobis thought about. As the saying goes, one fool makes a lot more. But they had to wake up when they heard a blast coming from the gates. Everyone looked at the direction of the gate and thought, I'll be the next emperor. Then they ran towards the gate. While they did that, Minato did nothing but smile, but a rolling chair stopped him. Jiraiya was now a pretty old person. Even though he was bald and had wrinkles, he still wore his shinobi clothes. Are you really going to choose one of them to take your place? Jiraiya asked, and Minato did nothing but laugh. Of course not. Whoever comes back with the head will be charged with treason as soon as he arrives. I've already set up a few bodies and told their families that someone killed them to get his head, so I don't have to choose. Minato said with a smile. Jiraiya told Minato, you're not immortal. One day you'll have to choose a successor, but Minato just smiled and agreed. I don't have to. Right now, my scientists are working on a way to make me immortal. They got everything we found out about immortality, like Orochimaru's notes and experiments, the bodies of the former Akatsuki members, Hidan and Kakuzu, and so on. In a few years, they will make a body for me that will never die, and I will be the emperor forever. Everyone will die around me, but I will be here forever. I will see when. That's my student, but don't forget to give me a body that won't die. So many ideas for my books are still coming to me. Jiraiya said, we need to show them so many more people, and Minato nodded. Jiraiya said, now if you'll excuse me, I have some lady friends waiting for me in my room, and then he left Minato alone to rape some slave girls in his room. But what they didn't know was that Yumi heard everything, and when they were done, she went to find Akuma. When the shinobi got to the walls, they saw that both the gate and the people who guarded it were broken. The stranger kept wearing his cape so that no one could see his body or face. A lot of angry shinobi tried to fight him in close quarters, but it didn't work because the stranger killed them with his scythe before they could even get to him.
The others saw that close fighting was a bad idea, so they started to get ready to use their jutsus to attack him. However, the stranger knew what they were going to do, so he put down the scythe and put his hands together for a moment. Now they could see that one of his hands was fake. But they didn't have to think about this because they thought he started to pray, which was bad because everyone knew that if he prayed, his power would go up. So, they struck right away, but before they could use their jutsus, the stranger told them something. Shinobi. Must die, shouted the stranger, and he slapped his hands onto the ground and a huge summoning circle appeared on the ground. The ground started to shake, and in a few moments later a huge monster started to rise from the ground. He was bigger than anything they saw before. Its body was dark brown color and it had two huge horns on his head, one on each side, and on top his head were horns which looked like a crown. Its eyes burned with fire and even from its mouth only fire came out. It was Phlegias, the guardian of the fifth circle of hell. The stranger didn't want to control it, he simply let it go. It would destroy Konoha in mere minutes. The shinobis which were there didn't have time to fight against the stranger, they went to fight against Phlegias. However, it will be difficult because there are no more summoning animals. Akuma destroyed every animal clans, because they refused to give up their chakra. He burned Katsuyu and the insect-type animals to dust. Every other type animals like the monkeys, dogs etc. were cut to pieces, while the bird-type animals were killed by tearing out their wings and burning their eggs. With one word, they couldn't summon anybody to help them. On the other hand, Phlegias's body is indestructible. They threw kunais, shurikens and jutsus, but nothing worked, and in the same time Phlegias destroyed Konoha and her inhabitants. Minato, from his fortress, could only watch and curse Naruto for this. Minato got angry and said, "Naruto, if you were here, I would kill you for keeping something like this from us." He remembered what Naruto had said during the Chunin test. Flashback. You know it's hard to control monsters from hell, but you only saw one of the three I can control. Naruto told Yumi during their fight in the Chunin test, I could call them, but I won't because they could wipe out the whole village in a few minutes.
Flashback end. Minato said, "So this is the monster you hid from us." You're right, it can destroy a village in a few minutes, and then he went to get ready for the fight, knowing that his shinobis wouldn't be enough to stop Phlegias. Shinobi who were close to Phlegias started to fight him, but they couldn't hurt him because his body is so strong. Few shinobi stayed where the stranger was. The rest of them went to fight Phlegias. A shinobi called out to him just as Sasuke was about to attack him. Uchiha-sama used the Susanoo. The shinobi told Sasuke, that's the only thing that can fight against that monster. Sasuke was about to say no, but he thought he was the only one who could beat the stranger, so he gave him a few more minutes until he killed his pet. Sasuke said, "Fine, I'll take care of it," and then he looked at the other shinobi who were there. Sasuke told the others, "Don't kill him until I come back." He then turned into the perfect Susanoo and went to fight Phlegias, but those who stayed didn't listen.
Lee said, "I'm sorry, Sasuke-san, but I have to show this demon how young I am.
I'll beat him, and I'll be the next emperor." He then ran at the demon. He jumped up, spun in the air, and tried to kick the stranger. Dynamic Ent. Lee started to say, but before he could finish, the stranger pulled out his scythe and cut off Lee's leg. Lee fell to the ground next to the stranger and started to scream in pain. The stranger picked up his leg, which was very heavy because of the weights. He looked at Lee and was sure he would die. Lee started to say, "Please have mercy. You can't be this old." But he couldn't finish because the stranger dropped Lee's leg on his face, crushing his head. The others were afraid of him because he was so mean, but they were also a little glad to see the back of Lee and his sermons about youth. Choji didn't think that way, though, because he was a friend. "You monster." Choji yelled, and he used his jutsu. Choji yelled, "Man meat tank," and turned into a huge cannonball. He then began to roll towards the stranger to kill him. He was fast, but when he got close to the stranger, he raised his scythe and cut Choji in half in a split second. His two pieces went to two houses on opposite sides of the road. Choji's body went back to normal after the hit, but he was cut in half. He had no chance of winning. When the other shinobi saw this, some of them ran away right away, but Phlegas stepped on them or burned them to death, so they couldn't get far. Kurenai said, "If ninjutsu doesn't work, I'll try genjutsu." She then used a strong genjutsu and ran at the man to kill him, but something was off for Hyuga Hinata. Hinata yelled, "Kurenai-sensei, no. He's not under the genjutsu." But it was too late. Kurenai was already too close, and the stranger killed her right away. One of the shinobi couldn't figure out what had happened, so he asked Hinata. "What do you mean he's not under the genjutsu?" One of the shinobi asked. Hinata said, "The genjutsu disrupts the enemy's chakra in their 5 senses, but he doesn't have any chakra in his body." The shinobi finished Hinata's sentence by saying, "If he doesn't have chakra, the genjutsu won't work because there's nothing to disrupt." Another shinobi asked, "Then how can we fight him? We've tried everything, from ninjutsu to taijutsu to genjutsu, but nothing can stop him. We have to retreat and come up with a plan," said Hinata, and the others nodded, but before everyone could run away, the stranger cut down a few more shinobis. After everyone left, the stranger started to walk to a house. He broke in and found a shinobi who tried to hide his wife. The shinobi noticed him and tried to kill him, but the stranger was faster and killed him before he could do anything. His wife ran up to the 2nd floor and go into a room. She closed the door and pushed a bed to the door, hoping it will stop him. Then she looked at the inhabitants of the room. 2 young girls who were completely naked. She ordered them to protect her because she was their master. However, they couldn't do much because they were chained to the wall by their neck.
A minute later, the stranger broke into the room to kill the woman. She immediately pushed one of the girls at him, but he didn't care about her.
He pushed her at the side of the room, then he grabbed his original target, then within a second broke her neck. The slave girls were terrified because they thought they would be the next, but for their surprise the stranger cut their chains, then opened some kind of portal. It was similar which Akuma used to get back to the lab after his fight against Yumi. The stranger pointed at the portal and the 2 girls ran through it. A moment later they were in a forest. They looked back and they saw they were a few miles from the village, because they still saw Phlegas as it was destroying the village. They suddenly collapsed and started to cry because they were free from those monsters, who always beat and raped them. But then suddenly another portal opened up and a few other now former slaves arrived to the same spot. And after that many more portal opened. There were men and women, and even children too. The stranger not just killed the shinobis and everyone else in the villages, but he freed the slaves who were chained by chakra and forced chains. He wanted to destroy everything that had chakra in it. Back in the village, the stranger went to the Uchiha mansion, which was the biggest. When he got there, a few guards tried to fight him, but they didn't stand a chance and were killed almost right away. He broke into the house and started killing every shinobi who tried to fight him. Then he came across Tamari and one of Sasuke's civilian wives, who pushed Tamari in front of the stranger. Tamari looked up and looked into his. "Why didn't he attack me?" Tamari asked herself. She quickly got herself together and went to find the other slaves to help them and save their kids as well. At least once, every Uchiha slave was pregnant. But they didn't have any chakra, so Sasuke only kept them living so they could become slaves like their mothers. Tamari wasn't sure if she should save Sasuke's real children because they would just turn out like him, but maybe there is hope for them too. Tamari knew the house pretty well, so it didn't take her long to find the other slaves. They were in chains, and Sasuke's wives were about to push them towards the stranger when they ran away. "Ah, Tamari. Good to see you." One of the wives said, "You can join the others to protect us from that monster." In reality, only the civilian wives were at the house while the shinobi wives were out fighting Phlegas and probably dying. Tamari said, "I have a better idea, you ugly cow. You can go to hell," and then she hit her as hard as she could. But the others stopped her before she could help them. Why do you think you're doing that? We are Sasuke Uchiha's wives. You have to keep us safe. We are more important than anyone else here. Another wife said, not you, you little whores, but Tamari just smiled. Tamari said, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but he won't attack us, slaves, but there's nothing that can stop him from attacking you. Just then, the stranger walked into the room and started walking towards them. The slaves were brought to him right away by the wives, but Tamari looked at them with brave eyes, which made the other slaves brave as well. The stranger held up his scythe and cut the chains. They had no chains. But this wasn't the case for the wives. They were dead in just a few minutes. Tamari helped the slaves get up while he killed them. Come on, we have to find the children and get the hell out of here, Tamari said, and the others agreed. They ran to the next room, where their babies were, but those with chakra were missing. They didn't have time to care about them, but it looked like someone had taken them away before the stranger came. Tamari was in front of the stranger, and this time she had another chance to talk to him. Mei Terumi, who ran away with them, saw that Tamari was deep in thought, and she really wanted to know what she was thinking about, so she asked her. Tamari, are you okay? Mei asked. Yes, I'm good. It was just weird to look into his eye, Tamari said, looking a little confused. What do you mean? Asked Terumi. Tamari said, maybe I'm wrong, but I think he's blind. The other people looked at her like she was crazy. What do you mean? Asked Terumi. When I looked into his eyes, it looked like he saw me but didn't see me at the same time. Tamari said, it's hard to explain. It doesn't matter anymore. We need to get as far away from the village as we can, Terumi said, and Tamari agreed. They started getting everyone together and slowly made their way out of the town. Still, this needs to be said. Almost, Tamari was right. The stranger, who used to be Kamada and Akuma, is nearly blind. 3 years ago, when Sasuke tried to kill Kamada with his lightning, he hurt his eye nerves. But the dark power of the scythe gave him back some of his sight, but not much. It's just enough to keep you from walking into a wall. But the scythe gave his eye an extra power. He can see the chakras of everyone. Because of this, they can't hurt him. He can see anyone or anything that has even a little bit of chakra. He knows how to avoid even the most powerful attacks right away because he knows about them before they are even cast. He set the slaves free because the chains they were in were made of chakra. So he had to kill them all. Let's just say that his eye is much stronger than the Byakugan, the Sharingan, or even the Rinnegan. But let's go back to the field of war. In a single word, it was a mess. Everything that got in the way of Phlegas was destroyed.
There were a lot of shinobi who tried to fight, but they couldn't.
It was so strong that even Sasuke's Susanoo couldn't beat it. Phlegas was busy, but he wasn't the only one. The stranger walked through the streets and killed the last shinobi. But the castle of the emperor was his main goal.
But there were a lot of shinobi in the way.
But they were all killed in cruel ways.
Like these shinobi who are so stupid.
There's he. Let's attack him. Shouted one of them. But it was useless, they couldn't even touch him. Everybody tried but all of them died in a very brutal way. Even the poor brainwashed genins and academy students. The stranger didn't show any mercy for anyone. In his eye everybody who had chakra was a shinobi, so an enemy. Sasuke's attack caused so much damage in his brain that no one can repair.
The only thing that left was a thought, which is, shinobi
must die. He's here, and it's time for us to show him how strong we've become through hard training, said a genin who was standing in front of the stranger with a few other genins. Yes, we will fight with everything we have and protect the villagers' smiles, they said. We will show that anything can be won if you work hard and trust your friends. Even a monster like you. Just remember that we are all stronger than you because we all have something important to guard. And for what you have done, we will never forgive you. Now attack, said another genin. They did, but they soon realized they couldn't beat the stranger. They tried to run away, but they couldn't hide from him. He went after them one by one, and when there were only two left, they tried to hide in a damaged building and heal their wounds. The genin who used to teach about everything said, "We have to go back and try again. We have to beat him." Are you insane? He is much stronger than us. You saw him hurt the other people. We have to get out of here as soon as possible. The other genin, who had obviously found his brain and realized what was going on, said, "Konoha is over. We have to fight. Remember what they taught us at the academy. We also promised to protect the smiles of the villagers." "That's the ninja way," said the first genin, but the other one looked at him with disgust. "FCK the villagers' smiles and FCK our ninja way," he said. The genin said, "I want to live," and he tried to run out of the building. But as soon as he left the room, the stranger cut off his head, and the other genin got up. "I know you are strong, but my faith in my training and ideals is much stronger. I know I can beat you. For the smiles of the villagers, I will," started the genin, but the stranger cut off his head before he could finish. The last thing the genin could think was, how could I lose? I had more faith than him. The stranger kept going towards the fort. He didn't have to open the gate when he got there because they were waiting for him. There was a garden after the gate. There was more than one shinobi waiting for them there. The cages before him were tied to chains. They knelt down in front of the shinobi. They thought that they could protect themselves with them. "Listen up, UF*C King weirdo. If you don't stop right now, we will kill these jerks right here. So drop your scythe and give up," said the captain of the shinobi, and to their surprise, the stranger did just that. "Yes, we finally beat you. I'll be the next emperor," said another shinobi. "No, I'll be next," said the third person. "Stupid people, of course I'll be next," said another. After that, they began to fight about who should go next. "Enough," the captain yelled. "I'll be next because I came up with this plan. Now it's time to kill this scumbag. Hey, you freak. Get on your knees," said the captain, and stranger did that. The captain came up behind him and gave him a small push. He didn't hit his head on the ground because he used his hand to hold himself up. But it was the right chance for the captain to cut off his head. But stranger did nothing but laugh. "What's the joke, freak?" the captain asked. "Shinobi must die," the stranger said, and all of a sudden, a huge number of Judeka chains grew out of the ground. They started tying the shinobi up, and in a minute their heads and limbs were tied together. The stranger stood up, grabbed his scythe, and walked towards them. "Please don't kill us. We belong to families. I know we give up our chakra, but please don't kill us," the captain begged, but it didn't help. The stranger hit the ground with his scythe and the chains started to pull the shinobi's limbs and heads. And finally they were torn to pieces. When he was done, the courtyard was full of limbs, torsos, and heads. Hyuga Hinata said, "It's over. Give all of your chakra to the seal." It was a gravity seal to hold him down until they killed him. At that moment, the force of gravity was 10 times stronger than usual. Even the stranger gave up and fell to his knees. One of the shinobi tried to kill him with shurikens, but the stranger was still strong enough to block them. But it didn't matter how strong the seal was because he just used the chains of Judeka again and caught all of the shinobi except Hinata, who got away. The stranger didn't wait for her to set them free, so he just tore them apart, just like he did in the castle the last time. Hinata told the stranger, I have to beat you because if you die, I can become Empress of the Empire and my wish will come true. She tried to kill him with only taijutsu, even though she knew it wouldn't work. The stranger dodged all of her hits without making any effort, and it looked like she was trying to hit him in slow motion. Hinata said to the stranger as she tried to hurt him, please let me kill you. I want to revive my Naruto-kun, and I can only do that if I am the Empress. As the Empress, I can use the Forbidden Scroll and that Forbidden Revival Jutsu. Even worse, she began to cry. Hinata yelled, please just die already so I can be with my Naruto-kun again. But the stranger had had enough of her. Right before her strike could reach him, he stabbed her in the stomach. A moment later, he threw her away from the blade and let her die of blood loss.
He even heard her last words. Naruto-kun, why, I just...
These were the last words of a woman who couldn't give up. With tears in her eyes, the little girl begged, please, mister, don't hurt me. I'm sorry if I did something wrong. Just don't hurt me. But it didn't matter. Shinobi must die, the stranger said, and then he raised his scythe to kill her. She screamed, and before he could kill her, she ran away. The stranger turned around and saw Uzumaki Yumi holding the little girl. Yumi looked at the stranger with anger in her eyes. That's enough. You've killed way too many people already. It's time to end this fight, Yumi said, and when the stranger saw her, he got very angry. Traitor! Yelled the stranger, and he tried to kill Yumi with his scythe. The scythe started to stretch out very quickly, but Yumi caught the blade with her thumb and index finger. It was unbelievable that someone could do this. I am not a traitor. I was betrayed by my so-called allies. I really wanted to save you, and I still do, Yumi said, whispering the last part. When Yumi let go of the blade, it went back to how big it was before. After looking at the girl, Yumi said this. What are you called? Asked Yumi. My name is Hana. My name is Hyuga Hana, the little girl said while she was crying. Okay, Hana. I'll knock you down, and then you'll have to hide until I'm done fighting. Can you do it? Yumi asked, but Hana just shook her head. Hana said with fear, I'm really scared, stay with me. Don't worry, I'll finish it quickly, and then we can leave. But for now, you have to be brave. Okay? Said Yumi. Hana looked at her with sad eyes and nodded. Yumi nodded, too, and put the girl down. She ran behind some ruins and watched the fight from there. Yumi looked back at the stranger, who suddenly grabbed his cape. Yumi's eyes widened because she knew what would happen. Yumi yelled, Hana, close your eyes and don't look at him. But it was too late. She had already seen what the stranger looked like. She fell right down on her knees and felt the front of her trousers get warm. M. Monster. Hana said this with a voice that shook. But because she was scared, her whole body shook. It wasn't a surprise because Kamada, who was now the stranger, didn't look at all like a person. All of his fake arms looked like the limbs of a monster. On one side of each of his fake arms, there were blades, and instead of nails, he had claws. His midsection was thin, and it was covered with machines. These were the parts of the machines on the outside of his body that helped his organs work. But even with all of these tools, the burned skin on his body was still visible. And the worst part was his head. He had burned marks on his head instead of hair. He wore a special gas mask to help him breathe. This mask also had an eye patch so that he could hide the fact that he had lost an eye. And, since he couldn't talk much, there was a microphone inside to help him. But his red eye, which showed a real desire to kill, was the scariest thing about him. It was angry and hateful. That eye looked like it was made of black. When Yumi looked at him, she too was shaking. What the hell did that crazy doctor do to you? God, be kind, said Yumi. She couldn't stand to look at him because she could still remember how he used to look. She couldn't believe that that sweet child was this horrible thing. Let's put an end to this fight. Yumi said this, but then something went wrong between her and the stranger. Sasuke Uchiha used the Susanoo to protect himself and avoid getting hurt as much as he could. He had been hurt and was very tired, but he still managed to get up. When he saw the stranger, he laughed. So, here's how you look now.
You're a real weirdo.
After I beat your pet, I'd kill you too, and we'd put you on display in a museum to show everyone how ugly you are, said Sasuke, then looked at Yumi. Uzumaki, where? I didn't forget about you. You will be mine, and until you die, you will give me children. You will do nothing but make babies. Together with the other women, you and I will make a Uchiha empire where everyone is a Uchiha. No one else but Uchihas can live in that empire. But to show how kind I am, I'll let those who don't have chakra anymore live.
They'll be our slaves and practice targets.
Sasuke said this, and Yumi could only shake her head because she could see that Sasuke had gone totally crazy. Hana heard this, and it scared her to death. The kids learned in school that Minato, Jiraiya, and Sasuke were the nicest and most selfless people in the world because they saved the shinobi world. But now she knew that a lot of what she had learned in school was not true. Sasuke, you've really gone crazy. You're just a little boy who has never stood up for anything. You were given everything, but it was never enough for you. You've never been accountable for anything. When something went wrong, you blamed someone or something else, even if it was your fault. That's why you're still a little boy who needs his mum to check under the bed for monsters. You're not even as manly as Kamada. You are just a scum, waiting to be crushed. Yumi said this, but Sasuke got very angry. You scum, how dare you call me scum? If I wanted to, I could kill you right now. I'm much stronger than you and everyone else. I am all-powerful, and I will rule. Squash, Sasuke said, but then one of Phlegnu's legs fell on him and squashed him like an insect. If the scythe is linked to Phlega's, the stranger can fully control it. But because of the dark power of the scythe, he was able to control it even though it wasn't connected to the scythe. But he can only give him simple orders like, kill, run, or, in our case, jump here.
The Sterniger sent Phlegias back to hell after it fell and killed Sasuke.
It wouldn't help him at all. Yumi looked at what was left of Sasuke after Phlegas went away. Just say that it wasn't nice. He was a big mass of dead organs, broken bones, and dead skin. Look at this, she said. Now you were really crushed, you wuss. Yumi looked at the stranger after she spoke. Now we can really start fighting. Yumi spoke, and the stranger suddenly opened his prosthetic arm and turned on something in it. This one was different from the other drug dispensers in his prosthetic limbs. It started to give the stranger a small amount of red juice. Yumi didn't see it exactly, but when it was over, the stranger put up a fighting stance and closed his artificial arm. Then, all of a sudden, the stranger walked up to her and tried to kill her. She couldn't move fast enough to keep up with him, but Kurama's chakra was fast enough to grab the blade before it reached Yumi. Yumi quickly jumped back, took out her sword, and got into a protective position. What the heck was that, Kurama? Nothing was visible. Was it speed, teleportation, or something else? Asked Yumi from Kurama. I think he gave himself some kind of drug to give himself a boost. It looks a lot like what Orochimaru and his followers used. It looks like that crazy doctor taught Orochimaru how to make it. Now, he has turned it into Kamada. We don't know when it will stop working. But I think he is going to die soon, which is why he wants to finish his fight against the shinobis. The important thing is to be ready and change right away, or you will die right away," said Kurama, and Yumi nodded. Back in the real world, only a second went by, and Yumi started to change right away. It's the same change she used against Akuma 3 years ago, but this time it's stronger. Yumi was able to learn how to perfectly handle Kurama's power. Now, she can change in a second, and she can also stay in this form for longer. "Come at me if you dare,"
Yumi said. The stranger and I didn't wait.
He began to run towards Yumi. A moment later, all you could hear was the sound of the blades hitting each other. Hana had to cover her ears because it was so loud. She let them fight with their swords for a few more minutes. But Yumi saw a chance and kicked the stranger, sending him flying back into the building behind him. Yumi wanted to see how much damage she did, but the stranger jumped out of nowhere and tried to cut her. Yumi was able to stop the attack, though. The stranger then landed not too far from Yumi. He was so tired that he was breathing through his mask, but Yumi didn't sweat at all. It seems like he's run out of steam. He must have gotten weaker because of the drug and everything else. "Finish him, Yumi," said Kurama, and Yumi nodded. "You don't have much time left. Let's end it with one final blow," Yumi said. "Come on," and she ran towards him. When he got up, the stranger did the same thing. It was a very long way for Yumi to go. She could only think that she was going to kill her own nephew. Still, she knew that her nephew wasn't really there anymore. He must be killed. Even if not all of the people he killed were innocent, he did a lot of bad things and killed a lot of people.
Then she and he were finally facing each other.
Yumi was about to hit him, but then she saw that he had a problem. He came at her very slowly, but she couldn't stop now, so she hit him in the right side with one blow. After the cut, the stranger fell down on his stomach right away. It wasn't a very deep cut, but it paralyzed him, and he will die in a few minutes. The stranger could only cut Yumi on the cheek. But Yumi's wound healed in a few seconds, and she went back to her normal form. She put her sword away and walked over to the stranger, who was already down. He did nothing but lie down. As she walked there, she looked to see how many people had made it out alive. She could feel 5 chakras. Hana was close by and was one of them. Another one was heading towards her. Minato did it. The third one was buried very deep. Jiraiya, the wimp, ran away from the fight. Tsunade and Shizune were the last two, but their chakras were not very strong. They must have been hurt. "I am sorry. I never meant for it to end this way. I hope one day you'll forgive me." Yumi said something, and then the stranger took a small step forward. She tried to grab Yumi's leg with his fake hand, but Yumi was faster and jumped back a little to avoid him. After that, he tried to get closer to her by dragging himself with his fake hand, but he could only move a few centimeters forward. He kept saying, "Shinobi must die," over and over again. When Yumi saw him, she could only feel sorry for him. Even though he is dying, he still wants to kill the people who use chakra. "Stop it, please. It's done. Don't keep torturing yourself." Yumi said this while crying. She wasn't able to look at him. Seeing him like this was terrible for her. She walked up to him and knelt down in front of him. He tried to get her, but he couldn't. "Don't do it.
I can't understand your pain, but I know you don't want to die this way."
Yumi said something, but the stranger just kept saying the same thing over and over. Yumi only sighed and knew that neither Akuma nor Kamada had anything left for her. She then took something out of her bag. "Here. I don't think you see this. Even so, your mother gave you this. Yumi said, and he put the cross his mother had made in front of the stranger. Then all of a sudden, the cross began to give off blue light. Even the stranger was surrounded by the same blue light. After a moment, it was over, and Akuma's red eye went back to being blue. Kamada? With some hope, Yumi asked. No, it is Akuma. The stranger, who was now back to being Akuma, replied. Which made Yumi feel even worse. She thought for a moment that she had saved her nephew. Don't worry though, because he's here too. He is just unconscious. Akuma said this, and Yumi began to cry even more because she was so happy. What's going on? Asked Yumi. There is a lot of holy power in the cross. It was made not only to fight monsters, but also to help people who were weak, hurt, or otherwise in trouble. In my case, it got my mind back. Said Akuma. Then what is your body?
Asked Yumi, but Akuma shaked his head.
My body is too far gone for the cross to fix it. I'm going to die soon. Said that Akuma and Yumi were crying again because they were sad. Don't be afraid. This way is better. I'm really tired and I want to see my parents again. But before I leave, I want to say thanks. Akuma said this, and Yumi was now confused. What for? Asked Yumi. Because you tried to save me in Kamada. The cross made me remember a few things about you. You did a lot to help me in Kamada. I'm sorry that I called you a liar. Now I get it. You and I were both trying to protect Kamada for the same reason. Only the way we did things was different. Because of who your father is, I just couldn't believe you. I was wrong. If I had been more honest with you, maybe this story would have a different ending. Akuma said, and Yumi just shook her head. You did for Kamada what you thought was best. You knew him long before I did. I can't blame you for what you did. You kept him safe, and that's all I need to know. I hope he can see his parents again, and that one day they'll forgive me for what I've done and let me meet Kamada. Said that Yumi and Akuma smiled at her, but because of the mask, she couldn't see it. That's so cute. A man who had just shown up on top of a building said this.
When Yumi turned around, she saw her horrible father.
What the hell are you doing here, Minato? Asked Yumi in a mad tone. I came here to see him die and to make sure the shinobi world has a good future. Minato then looked at Hana like a hungry animal would look at its target. The world of shinobi is over. There are only 6 of us left who can use chakra. Yumi said, but Minato did nothing but smile. Yes, but only 3 of them can have children. You, Shizune, and that girl over there will be the basis for a new and better shinobi world. You'll have a lot of kids who will grow up to be shinobis. And they will make me the emperor of the new Konoha Empire. Now, just give up and come with me. I promise that Jiraiya and I will treat you with kindness. What he just said made Minato and Yumi want to throw up. Hana didn't really understand what he said, which was a good thing. But Akuma began to laugh before Yumi could say anything. What the hell is so funny, freak? Minato had asked. If you look up, you'll see. Saying that, Akuma and Minato looked up and saw some blue beams of light coming towards them. What is it? Asked Yumi. My fallback plan. With a smile, Akuma said. Flashback. Fine, then I'll give you a job. Because it's important, I won't let it fail. Said Akuma, and Kushina nodded. If I fail, it's your job to finish what I started. Akuma said this, and Kushina was now confused. How am I even going to do it? I no longer have chakra. Kushina agreed, But then Akuma threw a scroll at her, which she caught right away. This is my last chance. It can be turned on by my blood or the blood of someone in my family. You can turn it on because you are my grandmother. When it is turned on, the seals will be sent to everyone with chakra. Also, it was linked to my life force. When I'm dying, it will start to give off blue light. But if there are no more people who use chakras, I will send you a warning that will glow red. Understood? Asked Akuma, and Kushina nodded. Alright, then I'll leave. I have a lot to do, said Akuma. Can I ask you something before you go? Kushina asked Akuma, and all he did was sigh and nod. Why don't you just use this right now to steal everyone's chakra? Asked Kushina. Because I want to give them a chance, she said. Akuma said it, but Kushina was still unsure. What are the odds? Asked Kushina. I want to know whether power or life is more important to them. It's either power or death at this point. So far, life has won, but that could change. If I just took their power from them, I would be nothing but a thief and a dictator. Not as good as your ex-husband, who didn't even try to give me a chance. As soon as he found out who I was, he wanted to kill me, said Akuma, and Kushina now knew a little more about Akuma.
I've spent enough time now.
It's time to go. Akuma said this as he was getting ready to leave the town, but he stopped for a second. One more thing, Kushina. He said that Akuma and Kushina were interested in him. Remember, while others are blinded by the light, we learn to see in the dark. Akuma said it, but Kushina didn't understand. What does that mean? Asked Kushina. I think you know already. Then he left Kushina alone to think about what he had said. Then she got what he meant, and she smiled because of it. Flashback end. You mean that, right? Yumi said this, and Akuma turned around and nodded. Yes, this is the end of the world for the shinobi. Akuma said this with a big smile that no one could see because he was wearing a mask. Akuma quickly picked up the scythe he had dropped when he fell down. Yumi, quickly take my hand. When Akuma said it, Yumi grabbed his real hand right away. The next second, the light hit her head and the heads of everyone else with chakra. For Yumi, it hurt because her seal was broken and Kurama was no longer tied to it. Akuma saved her by grabbing her hand. When he took Killer Bee's chakra, he did the same thing. Because of this, Kurama was set free and Yumi lived. But because he used all of his power too much, he only has a few minutes left to live. Kurama showed up outside the town, but he was unconscious because he had to give Yumi a lot of his chakra so she could change into her battle form, and now the last of his chakra had been taken away. Yumi wanted to see how Akuma was, but Minato pushed her away right away. What have you done, you freak? Give me back my chakra right now, or I'll kill you in this bish. Minato told him to hit him, and he did. But all Akuma did was laugh. Minato, it's over. They are no longer there, said Akuma. No, you can't do this.
Without the chakra, there will be no shinobi who can bring peace to this world.
We won't be unique if we don't have chakra. I'll just be a. Minato said this with real sadness. A normal mortal? Asked Akuma. Don't even think about calling me a normal person. I'm not just that. I am the ruler of the Empire of Konoha. I am the strongest shinobi in all of shinobi history. I won't let you take everything away from me. Minato, who had completely lost it, replied. Breaking news, Minato. I just did. Akuma and Minato kept hitting him, he said. That's why you give me my chakra back. I must be a shinobi, I must be unique. I don't want to be living if that's the case. It would be terrible to not have chakra. I wouldn't be any better than a peasant. Minato said this in a mad tone. Then I'll do something special for you, Minato. Minato thought for a moment that Akuma had realized his mistake and given back his chakra, but he was thinking about something else. Akuma took his scythe's blade and stabbed Minato. Then all of a sudden, Minato began to get older. His hair began to turn gray and grew very long. His skin started to get dry and wrinkly. His muscles started to go away, etc. But Akuma had the same things happen to him. He began to get older very quickly. Then Akuma took the blade away from Minato, and his wound got better right away. When Akuma dropped the scythe, it was gone right away. Minato moved away from Akuma, who now looked at least 120 years old and maybe even older. What did you do to me? Minato asked in a weak voice. What Akuma did to him surprised even Yumi. I gave you eternal life, but I took away all of your youth at the same time. Now you're just an old, weak man who can barely stand up. You can do anything you want because you won't die. Even if you burn yourself to dust or cut off your own head, you will come back to life right away. I gave you your worst nightmare. You have to live in a world where there are no chakras, you are weak, and nobody cares about you. But you are special. In the future, they will use you as a special lab rat to study how you can heal yourself, said Akuma. Minato wanted to punch, kick, and even kill him. But he was too weak. When he tried to do something to Akuma, he fell down. Why did you do this? Minato had asked. I've said it already. You're too good for hell. There, you are not wanted. You will always live here, and nobody will know who you are, said Akuma. Minato couldn't handle this, and he passed out from being so shocked. Now was a good time for Yumi to see how Akuma was doing. She walked up to him, got down on her knees next to him, and took his hand. Now is my time. I had no more strength left. Yumi, please. I gave mankind a chance to start all over again. I don't want that Kamada die in vain. Promise me that you and the other countries will make peace that lasts. Akuma started to cry, and Yumi also started to cry at the same time. I promise, said Yumi, and Akuma smiled under his mask. Thank you, Akuma said, and then he shut his eye. His hand started to slip out of Yumi's grasp, and it fell to the ground. It was finished. Akuma and Kamada died. Yumi cried wildly. Then she saw that Akuma's body was breaking down and turning into ash. Only his fake parts were still there. Then, all of a sudden, a yellow ball began to rise from the ash. Yumi knew right away what it was. It was the soul of Kamada. She wanted to touch it, but then dark clouds appeared above them, and the air got so cold that you could see your own breath. Suddenly, something that looked like a monster stood in front of Yumi. Finally, I can take your soul, and... he said. The thing that looked like a monster and was death itself said this. But a light beam broke through the clouds and covered Kamada's soul, ruining his happy moment. Then, all of a sudden, an angel flew down into the light beam. Yumi knew who she was right away. Kuretsuchi had done it. She wore a white dress and her hair was longer.
When she met Akuma, this is how she looked.
Heaven's little dog. You're not allowed to be here. I will take this soul. Death said this with anger. Angel of Death, I was given permission to make a deal with you, said Kuretsuchi. What's up? Asked about dying. Then, all of a sudden, Kuretsuchi's hand was holding a scythe. You can get your scythe back if you give me both the soul of my son and the soul of him back. We know that you've got him. So what do you think? Asked Kuretsuchi. Death was very angry. It wanted to kill the angel right away, but that would make things worse for it. Fine, you can have them, he said. The Death then took a soul out of its cloak and set it free. Here is my scythe. The Death said, throw it to me, and Kuretsuchi did. The Death caught it. Remember this, Angel, I'll find a way to get their souls for what they've done. No matter how long it takes, I will find a way. Death said it. They are now safe because heaven is watching over them. I think you should think twice about making threats like these. When Kuretsuchi said, Death, it went away. When the soul was freed from Death, it started to take shape, and Yumi was surprised to see that it was Naruto. Ni-sama? Asked Yumi. It's good to see you, Yumi. Naruto said this with a smile. But Yumi didn't know what to do. I know everything you've ever done. I appreciate that you tried to save my son. We don't have a lot of time, so I'll just say this. I'll be waiting, because we have a lot to talk about. Maybe I'll also give our mother a chance. But you don't need to rush to live your life. Naruto said this with a smile, and Yumi started crying happy tears because Naruto had forgiven her. Naruto stepped in front of her and fixed the wound he gave her when they fought in the Chunin test. Wait, Naruto. Help me. Minato said this when he suddenly came back to himself. Please, this was done to me by your son. You need to turn me around and give me back my chakra. I give you orders as your father. Minato said this, but Naruto just gave him a dirty look. I won't help you in any way, Minato. Enjoy your life, because you've always said you wanted to live forever. Said Naruto. As your Hokage and Emperor, I forbid you to do this. Minato started to say something, but Yumi kicked him in the face to stop him. Naruto, it's time to go. Kuretsuchi said, and Naruto nodded his head. At this point, Kamada's soul had also taken back its old form. Mom? Dad? Kamada, and they said yes. Where do we want to go? Asked Kamada. We're heading home. Many people, including Grandpa Onoki, are waiting for us. Kuretsuchi said, let's go up in the light, and they did. All of them gave Yumi a wave, and then they were gone. Even the clouds were no longer there. And Yumi's last tear fell. It wasn't the right time to cry. Akuma gave them a second chance and a fresh start. It was time to start a change. Yumi looked for Hana. When she found her, Hana was asleep. It was good because she didn't have to see all the dead bodies and blood on the streets. She took Kamada's ashes and the rest of his body parts with her when she left the house with Hana. She has met Tsunade, Shizune, and a few slave girls on her way out. They were slaves of Jiraiya, and they were the ones who killed him. Flashback. Before Minato destroyed it, Jiraiya and his two slave girls were in a basement room that the Root used. The girls were tied to the wall and had seals on them so they couldn't get away. Are you ready to go around again, girls? Jiraiya asked, but all of a sudden a seal appeared on her brow, and the seals on the chains and the girls disappeared. Jiraiya tried to turn them back on, but it didn't work. The girls knew that it was time to get even.
They were able to get the collars open and catch Jiraiya.
They tied him to the bed with chains. Please, ladies, don't be in a hurry. If you let me go, I'll let you go home. I also have a lot of money, so why don't we work something out? Asked Jiraiya, but it didn't matter. The girls wanted to get revenge for the people who had been killed by this cocky pervert Efker before them. And so, they found the best way to get back at them. They cut off his private parts and stuck them down his throat. He died by drowning in his own genitalia. After that, they ran away, and Tsunade and Shizune found them not long after. Flashback ends. Yumi laughed how they killed Jiraiya. Once they got to the gate, they didn't turn around to look back. They did not want to remember how Konoha looked at that time. They wanted to remember how things were before the prophecy drove Minato and Jiraiya completely crazy. Even though they didn't see Minato, they didn't care much about him. He is too weak to do anything now. They met Kurama at the gate and told him everything. Kurama asked them to let him go so he could find his brothers and sisters. They weren't able to tie him up, so they let him go and told him not to make any problems. Their world is in a very bad state right now. Kurama gave a nod and left. After they left Konoha, they went looking for the other slaves and prisoners that the stranger had freed. They found them quickly and told them to go to the hidden town closest to them to talk about what they should do. Suna was the closest one, but it took 3 days to walk there. But they weren't able to do much, so they walked. When they got to the town, they took a few days to rest. Then, they sat down and talked about what was going on. Everyone was there, including Yumi, Tsunade, Shizune, Gaara, Mei Terumi, and Akatsuchi, who took over as leader of Iwa after Onoki died. "What's going on right now?" asked Yumi. "Well, it looks like while we were gone, a lot of nobles seized the chance to take over land and call it their own country. And our force doesn't have the power to take back control everywhere. We have to talk to these aristocrats," said Gaara. After that, they began to fight for days. Then Yumi thought of an idea. "I have an idea, everyone. But we must ask every noble who owns land as a country," said Yumi. "What are you going to do?" asked Tsunade. "We're going to make a new system." Yumi and the other girls were confused, she said. "What do you think this new system should be called?" asked Gaara. The Republic. Epilogue. After the shinobi system was destroyed, the nations fell apart to many smaller countries, and nobody had the military power to unite them. 50 countries were created from the former elemental nations. That's why Uzumaki Yumi created a new system. She called it the Republic. In this system, all of the countries can keep their territories and they can elect their own leader, but at the same time they have to elect a senator who will speak as their country's representative. However, in every 4 years they elected a chancellor from the senators. It was him or her who led the conferences and lawmakings. They created laws which every county had to accept, but within the country the leader could make other laws until it didn't confront a law which was accepted by the Senate. The chancellor was elected from 4 senators. To be elected, their country had to show a major development in technology, agriculture, or in anything. The only important part was that it had to help the humanity. That's why every country did their best, because it was a huge prestige to become a chancellor. However, the first chancellor was Uzumaki Yumi, who showed them how she imagined it. And after her, a lot of chancellors followed her path. Of course, there were cases when corruption appeared, but they tried to stop it as soon as possible. The life started to become better and better. In a few hundred years the shinobis were a legend, and in a few thousand years later it was just a myth, nothing more. Everybody forgot about their origin, but it didn't matter to them. It was peace for hundreds of years. Even a new religion appeared where they thought Akuma was an angel who came down to the earth to save them from an evil being, which they called chakra. By this time nobody really knew what chakra and shinobi were. Moreover, by Yumi's order they built a huge stone dome around Konoha. Nobody really knew why they did it, but after a few years they called it the stone tomb where nobody could go in. Kamada's body was buried somewhere, but only Yumi knew where, and the lake where Yumi and Akuma fought received a new name. It was called Holy Lake. Years went by and the humanity learned what true peace was. However, after 4,000 years problems started to appear. The raw materials started to disappear and the fields started to become impractical. It didn't take much time and the countries started to arm themselves. A new war started, but because their technology was very advanced, it wasn't a very long war. The humanity erased themselves within a week. The last of the survivors built spaceships and left the planet to find a new home, because this world was nothing else just a wasteland. Nobody was left here, only me, Namikaze Minato. In the last 4,000 years I watched the humanity and it made me angry that it wasn't me who created this paradise. And it made me angrier that they forgot about the chakra. But it didn't matter anymore. I am still alive and I will find a way to get my chakra back and recreate the Konoha Empire.
And I will create real peace which will not end in few thousand years, it will be for an eternity.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.